Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're going to be uncorking the world of biodynamic wine.
Ooh, interesting.
Yeah, so, maybe you're someone who's getting ready for a visit to a biodynamic vineyard, or maybe you've seen biodynamic wines on a menu, but you're like, what is this?
Uh-huh.
Or, hey, maybe you're just curious about how farming practices can impact the taste of your wine.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's what we're diving into today. And full disclosure,
Hmm.
our main sources for this deep dive are actually all in Portuguese.
Oh, wow.
But don't worry, we've got them all translated for you.
Awesome. Yeah, we're going to be going way beyond organic
Oh, yeah.
into a realm where, lunar cycles and special compost preparations are thought to influence the grapes.
Okay, I gotta admit, cosmic rhythms and winemaking.
Right.
That's not a combo I ever really expected. But before we get too far into the mystical side of things,
Yeah.
let's break down some basics.
Okay.
What exactly is biodynamic wine?
Okay.
And how does it actually stack up against conventional and organic wines?
Sure. So think of it as like a spectrum.
Okay.
On one end, you've got conventional winemaking, which often relies on chemical fertilizers and pesticides,
Right.
really to maximize those grape yield.
Yeah, just get as much as you can.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And then we move towards organic, which prioritizes natural fertilizers and pest control, working with nature.
Right, more of that good for the planet approach.
Exactly.
But, some argue that organic farming isn't always efficient or able to produce enough to meet demand.
Yeah,
Does biodynamics kind of bump into those same issues?
that's a valid point and something we'll definitely, touch on a bit later.
Okay.
But to answer your question, biodynamics takes that eco-conscious approach even further.
Okay.
It views the entire farm as a living, interconnected organism,
Wow.
deeply in tune with the cosmos.
So not just avoiding harmful stuff, but actually enhancing the natural processes.
Exactly. It's about actively nurturing the vineyard's vitality.
I like that.
And a key figure in this whole philosophy is Rudolf Steiner.
Ah, yes, the OG biodynamic guru.
Right.
I do know a little bit about Steiner, but for those of us who are, just dipping our toes into this world,
Sure.
can you give us the Steiner for wine lovers crash course?
Okay.
What were his main ideas, and how did they shape biodynamic viticulture?
So Steiner believed that farms weren't just resources to be exploited, but rather living organisms
Okay.
with unique rhythms and needs
Interesting.
interwoven with the larger environment. And he introduced the concept of biodynamic agriculture, which later, made its way into winemaking.
Well, back then, this was pretty revolutionary thinking, right?
Absolutely. He was way ahead of his time advocating for a holistic approach to farming decades before terms like sustainability and ecosystem, became mainstream.
Yeah, it's amazing how these early ideas have kind of paved the way for so many modern practices. And speaking of practices, our sources mention some pretty intriguing biodynamic methods.
Yeah.
For instance, compost preparations.
Sure.
And get this, they involve cow manure buried in cow horns over winter.
Yes, the infamous cow horn preparations.
I'm picturing a vineyard with all these horns buried everywhere.
I know, it's a very distinct image.
But honestly, I'm really curious, what's the thinking behind this?
Yeah.
Is it really about harnessing some kind of earth energy?
Well, biodynamics places a strong emphasis on these subtle energy transfers.
Okay.
And these preparations are thought to capture and amplify the forces of nature.
Interesting.
The cow horn, for instance, is seen as a container that focuses these energies, and burying it underground allows for interaction with the Earth's rhythms.
It's fascinating how seemingly simple materials are thought to enhance the grapes in such a profound way.
Yeah.
And there's another preparation with crushed quartz, right?
Yes.
Also buried in a cow horn, but over the summer.
Precisely, silica, in the form of crushed quartz, is believed to capture light and warmth,
Okay.
those life-giving forces. So while the cow manure preparation is about drawing energy from the Earth, the silica preparation focuses on drawing down those cosmic influences.
So it's like a yin and yang of energy sources. I have to say, the more we delve into this, the more I'm starting to see the interconnectedness that biodynamics emphasizes.
That's a key takeaway here, seeing the vineyard as a web of relationships, not just a collection of individual elements.
And how does that play out in terms of, say, planting and harvesting?
Yeah.
Is it true that biodynamic vineyards rely on these special calendars and cosmic rhythms?
Absolutely. The biodynamic calendar is a vital tool that guides all aspects of vineyard management. It considers lunar cycles, planetary positions, and even the constellations.
I've heard about planting by the moon, but honestly, I always thought that was more folklore than anything else. Could you explain how those lunar phases are thought to influence plant growth?
Well, just as the moon's gravitational pull affects the tides, Biodynamic practitioners believe it also impacts the water movement within plants.
Okay.
For example, certain tasks like pruning are believed to be more beneficial during a waning moon when the sap is drawn downward.
So it's not just about mystical beliefs, but actual observable natural
Mhm.
phenomena. Exactly.
It's about observing and working with those natural rhythms for optimal plant health and ultimately better grapes.
It's like a whole different language of communication with nature.
It really is.
And an essential part of that communication is fostering biodiversity.
Yes.
Unlike conventional farming, which often favors monocultures, biodynamic vineyards encourage a diverse mix of plants and animals.
Right. It's all about that balance.
So it's about creating a balanced, resilient ecosystem
Right.
rather than just focusing on the grapevines themselves.
Precisely think of it as nature's symphony, with every element playing a vital role.
I love that analogy. It really paints a picture of the intricate web of life at play in a biodynamic vineyard.
Mm.
And it's not just limited to France, as many people might think.
Right.
Biodynamics has taken root all over the world.
It has.
Our sources actually highlight some surprising regions like the Mosel Valley in Germany, known for its Rieslings.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Germany. I never would have guessed. It seems like biodynamics is popping up everywhere, from the classic wine regions to unexpected corners of the globe.
It really is fascinating.
But with all this talk of cosmic energy and moon cycles,
Right.
how can you tell if a wine is truly biodynamic? I mean, is there a way to separate the real deal from the marketing hype?
That's where certification comes in, and that's a topic we'll dive into right after.
My cliffhanger.
Haha.
All right, so we've covered some of the basics of biodynamics, the philosophy, the practices, that global reach.
Right.
But how do we as consumers know if a winemaker is truly walking that biodynamic walk? Is there some kind of stamp of approval we should be looking for?
You're right. Certification is key when it comes to ensuring a wine's biodynamic integrity.
Okay.
There are two organizations that are the main players in this field,
Okay.
Demeter and Biodiven.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of Demeter.
Right, and they've set some pretty rigorous standards that go above and beyond your typical organic certifications.
Okay, so you mentioned these standards are stricter. What exactly are we talking about here? What does a winery have to do to earn that Demeter or Biodiven seal?
So for starters, absolutely no synthetic chemicals are allowed.
Okay.
That includes fertilizers, pesticides,
Yeah.
herbicides, you name it.
The whole gamut.
The whole 9 yards.
Got it.
This is similar to organic standards, but biodynamics takes it several steps further.
Okay, so no shortcuts, no sneaking in a little conventional fertilizer under the moonlight.
Not a chance.
Huh.
Those compost preparations we talked about,
Right.
the ones with the cow horns, they're mandatory.
Okay.
And the biodynamic calendar,
Yeah.
it's not just a suggestion,
Mm.
it's a guiding principle for everything from planting to harvest.
So Demeter and Biodiven aren't messing around.
No, they're not.
But how do they ensure wineries are actually following these rules?
Both organizations have regular inspections to make sure everything is above board.
Okay.
They're pretty thorough.
Yeah.
They'll check the vineyard's practices, the inputs used, even the winemaking process itself.
Wow.
Think of them as the biodynamic police, making sure everyone's playing by the rules.
Okay, that's reassuring to know.
Right.
It gives consumers confidence that what's on the label is actually what's in the bottle.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm curious, all this biodynamic rigor, does it impact the price tag?
Yeah.
Are we talking like premium prices for these wines?
It's a fair question, and the answer is often yes.
Okay.
Biodynamic practices can be pretty labor-intensive,
Right.
requiring, careful attention
Mm-hmm.
and often yielding smaller harvests.
Okay.
Plus, there's the added cost of certification.
Right.
So those costs are often reflected in the final price.
Makes sense. I guess for those of us who aren't, shall we say, wine connoisseurs with deep pockets, biodynamic might be an occasional treat, not an everyday pour.
That's probably realistic for many, but
Yeah.
even one glass, can
Yeah.
open up a whole new world of flavor and philosophy.
Okay, you've convinced me. I'm ready to dive into this world of biodynamic wines. Great.
But where do I even start?
Yeah.
There are so many wines out there. It can
Actually,
be
yeah.
overwhelming.
Don't be afraid to ask questions at your local wine shop.
Okay.
A good wine merchant can be an invaluable guide.
So I should walk in and be like, give me your most biodynamic, moon-influenced bottle.
You can try that. But more seriously, they can help you navigate the world of biodynamic wines,
Yeah.
suggesting bottles based on, your taste preferences and budget.
Okay, good to know. And what about regions?
Yeah.
Are there any hot spots for biodynamic winemaking that I should be on the lookout for?
Well, as we mentioned, France has a strong biodynamic tradition, particularly regions like Alsace-Burgundy and the Loire Valley.
Okay, all the classics.
Right. These regions have a long history of winemaking.
Mm-hmm.
And many producers are really dedicated to preserving the land and crafting wines that, express their unique terroir.
Now, you mentioned terroir.
Yeah.
Some of our listeners may not be familiar with that term. Could you give us a quick explanation? Absolutely. Terroir refers to the complete natural environment in which a particular wine is produced, including factors like soil climate and topography.
Got it.
It's the idea that a wine should reflect the unique characteristics of its place of origin.
Ah. So it's about capturing the essence of a particular place in a bottle.
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense, but I get the feeling biodynamic winemaking is about more than just terroir.
Yeah.
It's almost like a spiritual connection to the land and the grapes.
You're hitting on something important here.
Okay.
Biodynamics is often seen as, a holistic approach.
Right.
One that recognizes the interconnectedness of everything, the soil, the vines, the people, even the cosmos.
I have to admit, some of this sounds a little woo-woo to me.
Sure.
I can imagine some people rolling their eyes at the mention of cosmic energy and moon calendars.
Mm-hmm.
What would you say to the skeptics out there?
I understand the skepticism. Even I was initially hesitant about some of the more esoteric aspects of biodynamics. But here's the thing. Even if you strip away the more mystical elements, biodynamics is grounded in sound ecological practices
Okay.
that benefit the environment regardless of whether you believe in cosmic energy or not.
So it's about more than just chanting to the vines under a full moon.
Exactly. At its core, biodynamics is about building healthy soil, increasing biodiversity, and minimizing human intervention.
Okay.
Practices that contribute to a more balanced and resilient ecosystem.
Right.
And those are tangible benefits that everyone can appreciate.
That's a great point. So even if someone isn't fully on board with the spiritual side of things, they can still appreciate the positive impact biodynamic farming has on the environment.
Yeah.
But what about the impact on the wine itself?
Right.
Does all this biodynamic magic actually translate to a better tasting wine?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Haha, yeah.
And it's one that we'll tackle head-on in our final segment of The Deep Dive.
Ooh, another cliffhanger. Okay, so it's the moment of truth. We've explored the philosophy, the practices, the certifications, but the question on everyone's mind is, does biodynamic wine actually live up to the hype? Does it really taste different?
Well, that's the question that's fueled, countless debates and blind tastings. And
Yeah.
as with many things in the world of wine, there's no simple answer.
Right, because taste is subjective. Everyone's palate is different. We get it.
Right, exactly.
But surely there must be something to these claims.
Yes.
I mean, winemakers and enthusiasts, they swear by biodynamic wines, claiming they have this certain, je ne sais quoi.
You're right. There are definitely some consistent themes that emerge when people describe biodynamic wines.
Okay.
They often talk about this purity of flavor,
Yeah.
the vibrancy, a more profound expression of terroir.
Okay.
It's like the wine is somehow, more alive, more in tune with its origins.
I've heard some people even say they can sense like a heightened energy or vitality in these wines.
Right.
Is that just a placebo effect, or could there be something to that?
It's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
Some believe that by working with nature's rhythms and avoiding those harsh chemicals, the grapes are able to express their full potential,
Okay.
resulting in a wine that's, more nuanced, more complex, more reflective of its environment.
So it's not just about the, chemical composition of the wine,
Right.
but also the energy and intention that goes into that whole process.
Mhm.
I guess that's what sets biodynamics apart.
Exactly. It's this holistic approach that considers the interplay of countless factors, both seen and unseen.
Right.
And while scientific evidence might be limited, there's a growing body of anecdotal evidence from winemakers and tasters who consistently report a difference
Interesting.
in the quality and the character of these biodynamic wines.
Well, I have to admit my curiosity is piqued.
Yeah.
I'm ready to seek out a biodynamic wine and see what all the fuss is about.
Awesome.
For those of us who are, ready to embark on this biodynamic tasting adventure, what advice would you give?
Yeah.
How do we approach these wines differently?
It's not so much about having a different tasting technique, but rather just an openness to experiencing the wine on a deeper level.
Okay.
Pay attention to the purity of the aromas, the vibrancy on the palate,
Okay.
the length of the finish. See if you can sense that energy and vitality that biodynamic proponents often describe.
So really open your senses and your mind to that whole experience.
Precisely, don't get caught up in trying to analyze it too much. Just enjoy the wine and see what you discover. You might be surprised by what you find.
That's what I love about wine in general. It's this ongoing journey of discovery.
It is.
And biodynamic wine just adds another fascinating layer to that exploration.
Absolutely.
And even if you don't detect those subtle nuances or cosmic vibrations,
Right.
you're still supporting a more sustainable and mindful approach to winemaking.
Exactly.
That's a great point. At the end of the day, it's about making conscious choices that align with our values.
Absolutely. Biodynamic wine is a testament to the power of working in harmony with nature. It's a reminder that, what we put into the earth, we get back in our glass.
Well said. I think that's a perfect note to end on. Cheers to biodynamic wine, and cheers to all of you for joining us on the deep dive. We encourage you to seek out a biodynamic bottle and embark on your own taste adventure. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.